We are at episode 204. It's pretty good, huh?
It is, yes, very good.
Yeah, we made it. We made it into the 200s now. So very exciting. Anything interesting happened to you recently?
Nothing particularly. No.
You didn't bring anything that we can do witty banter about? Banter?
Nothing particularly. No. A groundhog got into my garden. I don't know if we can do banner about that.
Do you? So I used to have a groundhog problem in my house, and do you have like do you try to trap them and move them away, or do you just let them do their thing?
So I generally let them do their thing, and I got I think I sent you and Stomp pictures of this, but I got like a new fence to put around our garden. It's kind of a raised garden bed, and it appeared when I was gone over the weekend that he wedged himself between the fencing and got into the garden and ate a bunch of lettuce and cucumber leaves and squash leaves and pumpkin leaves. So he fattened up pretty well. So now I just put some wire tie around it. So hopefully he doesn't get into it again.
Good luck.
I'll be on the lookout.
Yeah.
He's a cute little guy. I've seen him out there before eating clovers and stuff, but he's not that cute when he starts to eat everything in my garden.
Right.
I lose patience at that point.
Yeah, my guy, he just would, he had no fear of humans after a certain point. He was living under my shed, my old shed, until I got a new one. Then I got a new shed, and I put chicken wire. I buried chicken wire so that nothing could get under there, and that's worked pretty well.
Oh, yeah, we'll see. Someone brought that to my attention that they can dig under stuff, and I was like, oh, well, hopefully it doesn't start going under the fence now.
True.
But we'll see.
True, yeah. So
taking it one day at a time.
Yeah.
One day at a time.
I had quite a battle going with the groundhogs in my yard for the first 10 years I lived here. I got one of those have a heart traps, so I would trap them, and then I would illegally, because it was against the law to move these things, but I didn't care. I was a rebel, and now the statute of limitations is over, so I can brag about it. But I would take the groundhog that I would catch in my backyard, and I would take it over to Woodsum Farms in Amesbury, and I'd let it loose, and then in the dead of night, and then it would somehow find its way back. But then one time my wife called me and she said,
Are you sure it's the same groundhog?
Of course. Yeah, I don't know if it is, but I just
tag him.
Yeah, I just say it. I would put him in the trunk of the car. I think it was very traumatic for the groundhog, so I would cover it up so they wouldn't see anything, but it would often pee in the back of my trunk because it was nervous. So but one time, the have a heart traps came to an end because of two situations. One was I caught a groundhog, and because they kept coming back, I was like, I'm going to really take this thing far away. I used to work in Cambridge. I would take the groundhog to the old Colonial golf course, which is now Linfield, outlets, or in Linfield, whatever. It's a shopping center, but it used to be a golf course. And in the golf course, there was a gym that I would meet my friends, and we would do spin class and then work out before work. So I was like, I'm just going to take the groundhog to my gym and let it loose in the parking lot because it's on a golf course. So and then I go at 5 a.m. to my spin class, right? So I think I've told the story on the show before, but maybe I haven't. So I had the groundhog in the have a heart trap. It's in my trunk. I drive down to Wakefield. I get out of my car. There's nobody around. But little did I know, I wasn't paying attention. There was a girl getting out of her car at the exact time that I let the groundhog loose. And the groundhog, instead of it running to the golf course, it decided to run straight at this girl who was getting out of her car. And she started screaming as she's watching me let the groundhog. So
you can't make this up.
As you can imagine, I'm like, oh no, that didn't just happen. And she's looking at me. And I'm like, all right, well,
why'd you release your rabid groundhog at me?
Yeah, I released so then I'm like, okay, well, I got to go into my spin class because it's 5:15 and I'm meeting my friend in there and he's going to be like, what's going on? So I walk in and I'm like, yeah, she's just going to forget about it and laugh it off, right? So, you check in, you say hello to the person that worked the front desk in the morning. And then I look over my shoulder and the girl is talking to 4 other friends of hers and they all just immediately stop talking and they're looking at me and I'm like, oh no, do you think that they know? Is she talking about me? Of course she's talking about me. I didn't know. So then I go into
How often does that happen?
Yeah. So then I go into the spin class and they're all in there and they're all just whispering and giggling and I just had to explain to my friend what's going on and I'm like, yeah, I unleashed a groundhog on this lady. So
what the heck?
Yeah.
That is a wild story, Mike. I'm glad I mentioned the groundhog. Yes. I did want to mention quickly that so this whole trapping things and bringing them places, I would say that you're totally crazy to be doing that, and hopefully they don't find their way back. But my grandfather, actually, who's passed away long ago now, he retired early he worked for Arco Oil, and I guess he just was running out of stuff to do in his retirement. But he actually used to trap squirrels with the have-a-heart traps in my grandparents' backyard because he'd get pissed at them like eating the garden and doing other things. And he actually was a big ham radio operator, and they'd get into like his antenna and the wiring and do stuff in the house. So he would actually trap them in Cumberland. And for those that know the area, he would bring them across the Blackstone River into Lincoln and other places. Like, so his theory being that they couldn't cross the river and get back. And like, it was an interesting thing. Like, I don't know how many squirrels he trapped over like the years, but it was kind of funny.
Lincoln, Rhode Island has the largest population in the Northeast of squirrels.
So. So if you live over there and there's a lot of squirrels that you notice near the Blackstone River, it's probably from my grandfather. But I used to bring them across the river. But I'm like, that's a phase you reach in life where you're just trapping squirrels. Because they're attacking your ham radio wire and bringing them across the river. Yeah. It's amazing.
And just for the listeners, like it is like, I think that it's dubious legalities to trap these animals and bring them to other areas. So don't, statute of limitations on me has run out. So I'm happy to talk about it. But if you're doing anything like that, like just be aware that you can get a fine and it's not encouraged. I will say that my have-a-heart got put away because as I continued my battle against groundhogs, I ended up catching a skunk, and that became problematic. My wife couldn't go out into the backyard. Well, the skunk was in there. I was at work. I called a couple of the exterminator guys to see if they could get rid of it, and like it cost me about $500 for some guy to come out, cover the skunk with a tarp, and then like let it loose in the yard. And
oh, geez.
So I put the have-a-heart trap away, and I bought a new shed, and I buried the chicken wire, and I haven't had a problem since.
I'm going to think of this every time that I see the groundhog in the backyard.
Here is the latest Higher Summits forecast brought to you by our friends at the Mount Washington Observatory.
Weather above treeline in the White Mountains is often wildly different than at our trailheads. Before you hike, check the Higher Summits forecast at mountwashington.org. Weather observers working at the nonprofit Mount Washington Observatory write this elevation-based forecast every morning and afternoon. Search and rescue teams, avalanche experts, and backcountry guides all rely on the Higher Summits forecast to anticipate weather conditions above treeline. You should too. Go to mountwashington.org or text forecast to 603-356-2137.
Greetings. Nick here with your forecast for the weekend of August 2nd, 2025. Friday. In and out of the clouds under mostly cloudy skies. High, mid-40s. Wind, northeast, shifting north at 15 to 30 miles per hour early, 5 to 20 miles per hour, possibly becoming light and variable at times midday, and 15 to 30 miles per hour later. Wind chill rising to 25 to 35 above. Friday night. In and out of the clouds trending towards clearing under partly cloudy skies. Low, upper 30s. Wind, north, shifting northwest at 15 to 30 miles per hour, increasing to 20 to 35 miles per hour with gusts up to 40 miles per hour. Wind chill falling to 20 to 30 above. Saturday. Mostly in the clear under mostly sunny skies. High, upper 40s. Wind, northwest at 10 to 25 miles per hour. Wind chill, 20 to 30 above and then rising. So it looks like things are going to start clearing up Friday. Should be a nice day Saturday to get out there and crush some peaks. Enjoy, be safe, happy hiking everybody.
Broadcasting from the Woodpecker Studio in the great Live Free or Die state of New Hampshire. Welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking, and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire and beyond. Here are your hosts, Mike and Nick.
Right. So anyway, that was quite a tangent of witty banter.
It was, but it worked.
Yeah.
Nice.
Welcome to episode 204 of the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast. This week, we are joined by our friends, the Summit Sisters. So Heidi, Jen, and Cathy are going to be joining us. They are White Mountain hikers and locals from the North Country. So they're going to join us to share some of their experiences hiking in and around the White Mountains. They're going to give us some tips on their favorite hikes and maybe some hidden gems from the locals' perspective. Plus, there is a bear in the Pemi that is causing more and more incidents around Liberty Springs and Franconia Brook Trail. So we'll talk about that. Nick's got a music minute. We've got some national hiking news that we may get to. We're running out of time here. And then we got recent hikes. Nick did a Prezi Traverse, and then Mike did an out and back to Owl's Head. So we also going to break down an incident that I had where I had a trail hand injury. So we'll talk about what we had to do there. Plus a little bit of a history segment, look at early trail work timeline from the AMC Appalachia Journals. And then we've got some recent search and rescue news, including one of the rescues where we had the people that were involved in the rescue reached out to us to give a little bit more detail, which we thought was pretty cool. So we'll talk about that. So I'm Mike.
And I'm Nick.
Let's get started, Nick.
Let's get started!
And let's dump into our friend Christina from Wild Raven Endurance Coaching.
All right, let's do it.
Hi, I'm Christina from Wild Raven Endurance Coaching. I work with athletes of all levels, from hikers to triathletes, helping you reach your goals with personalized guidance. With years of experience hiking, mountain biking, and trail running across New England, I also have a deep knowledge of the New Hampshire 4,000 footers and the surrounding trails. Whether you're a beginner hiker or a seasoned athlete, I'll guide you towards your goals, reducing injury risk and improving your performance through smart, tailored coaching. Are you looking to transition from hiking to mountain running? I'm here to make that journey easier too. My approach combines strength training, mindfulness, and life balance on and off the trail. Let me help you find more joy in your sport while getting stronger and healthier along the way. Visit www.coaching.christinafolsick.com and start your adventure today.
Okay, Nick, so we'll start off with the Pemi black bear here. So I got sent, I'm assuming you, I think I shared this video with you or you got it from somewhere, but there was a video probably about a week and a half ago that started circulating on YouTube. Looked like it was some thru hikers or at least some experienced hikers that had titled the video Liberty Springs Bear Attack. And one of the people that was on the video had shown at the beginning of the video that a bear had ripped through. It looked like a Dyneema fabric tent, but they basically
like a ultralight tent kind of deal.
Yeah, right. And they were on a tent platform, and the video goes on for what did you say, like 8 or 9 minutes?
Yeah, it's pretty long. I think they actually titled it the Bear Witch Project, which I thought was kind of funny.
It was apt too, because if if you're a certain age, like the Blair Witch was like a handheld VCR movie, kind of a first of its kind, and it was kind of that same shaky footage with really bad lighting. Footage. Yeah. You couldn't actually see the bear, similar. But like they were acting like they could, they could see the bear.
Like
yeah. So, but we don't know for sure, but I would assume, Nick, that this has been an ongoing thing. So this started with a bear stalking some hikers are in and around the Bondcliff Trail. Particularly, there was one incident that a hiker had written on either Reddit or Facebook that they had become so concerned that I think that they left their pack. They threw their pack and took off.
Yeah, they ended up running away, and I remember we covered that earlier in the year.
Right, and then the saga continued where there was some hikers that had backpacked, and they were, I think, set up camp somewhere around the bottom of the Owl's Head slide, which that's not really a legal spot spot, but people do tend to set up in that area, and they were up basically all night with a bear that wouldn't leave them alone. And then we've got this Liberty Springs incident that happened last week. And then as I was sitting in my ultralight chair, Nick, waiting for some friends to join me on a hike in Lincoln Woods, there was some thru hikers that came out on Saturday morning, and not thru hikers, but backpackers. And they shared a story that where they were tenting, and I didn't really get exactly where they were tenting, but they had said that a black bear was there all night keeping them up, and that they had a bear box, but still the black bear was continued to prowl around the camp, and they basically were up all night worrying about the bear. And then there's signs everywhere in Lincoln Woods that there's bear problems. So definitely, I'm assuming it's probably the same bear. Do you think so?
Yeah, I don't know. So it seems like every year, at least since I've been following it and you guys have been covering it, it seems like Liberty Springs in this area always, and kind of out to like, I guess, the Lincoln Woods area, it seems like there's always black bears that get keen on hikers carrying food out there for whatever reason. I don't know whether it's the traffic with AT hikers or backpack. You think of anywhere in the area in the Whites, like backpacking, probably really popular in Lincoln Woods and kind of going out of that trail compared to a lot of different areas. I think we're going to camp out and do different things. So maybe that's why, but, yeah, unfortunately, it seems to be becoming a really common theme where, like you said, I don't know if it's the same bear that could be going back and forth between those two locations, or maybe at this point, maybe it's even kind of a family of bears where it's like the mom is starting to sort of teach the cubs that, hey, you can go to these places and these hikers have food on them. And because it seems to be almost a generational thing at this point with it happening year after year after year.
Right. And I do have a couple of theories. One, I think I do wonder about Liberty Springs because it is like it's such sort of the thru hikers will go into town and then
we were texting about this a little bit,
and then they head up to Liberty Springs and they're all like fully supplied up.
Yeah, just stocked up completely for whatever many days till they get to Crawford Notch, probably.
Yeah, exactly. And then like some thru hikers will tell you like, I sleep with my food. They shouldn't, but some of them will tell you like, I just sleep with my food. So maybe they're just like, even though Liberty Springs, it's a little bit of a walk from where your tent is to where the bear box is. But I also wonder whether the bear box fills up if you've got a bunch of thru hikers in there and people just sort of say, screw it, I'm going to sleep in my, with the food in my tent. And then the other thing I wonder about, and this actually came up when I was hiking, is I think that there's a lot of people that stash their packs at the bottom of Owl's Head Slide and just leave those packs there for a couple of hours or an hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever, and then they'll come back and their packs are gone. I suspect that happens more than you think. And I think that would only need to happen like a couple of times before a bear would start saying like, all right, this is my honeypot.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think the Owl's Head Slide's a little bit up to the spur to get to the summit's a little bit further than I'd like to leave my pack, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like a mile plus easy, right? Maybe 2 miles.
Absolutely.
Up that slide.
It's
so,
1,600
I
feet
get
of
people.
climbing.
Yeah, so I understand people doing that. It's not what I would do. But anyways, that's off topic. But yeah, I could see that happening. I think people underestimate too. They're instinctual. They're smart when it comes to finding food. Like they'll remember that type of stuff where they can get food. And if they found a Snickers bar or whatever a few times in someone's pack, I'm sure that's a heck of a lot easier than them rummaging through the forest looking for berries and things like that to eat. So absolutely. I feel like that's a pretty plausible theory.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, me and Jake came down the Brutus Bushwhack and we ran into 4 backpackers that were heading to 13 Falls, but they were going to go to Owl's Head. And they were asking us like, oh, how's the slide? Would you go up Brutus? The slide? And I was like, go up the slide. It's the only place you can have a view. And they were like, oh yeah, I can't wait I'm going to drop my pack. And me and Jake both kind of said, and we were like, look, there's a lot of signs about bears in the area at Lincoln Woods. I said, exactly what you said is it's just a little too far from, I like West Bond, maybe. Yeah, I don't leave my pack at all. But like West Bond, I could understand. But I told them, I was like, look, I wouldn't leave your pack laying around because it's going to be an hour and a half while you're up there. And they were kind of like, and I said, my opinion, like go to 13 Falls and then come back. It's not that far. So
yeah, or even, you can always bring, and I've done this before too, but bring like a smaller, like one of those like nylon, almost drawstring backpacks. Like you could bring that camping with you and be like, okay, go camp at 13 Falls and bring some water, bring some food with you, whatever you need, and go hit the slide.
Yeah.
That way, at least you have your emergency stuff on you and food and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess we'll keep an eye on it. I don't know if the Forest Service like advertises. I'm assuming by now that they've got to have.
They have to be looking for it.
They got to be looking to trap that thing, I would think, at this point. But they're not going to advertise it, but they'll see what they can do there. So anyway, look out if you're in that general vicinity. Osseo Trail, Liberty Springs, Franconia Brook, 13 Falls, Owl's Head, all that area there is bear country for sure.
Yeah, don't be that awkward person and come back and your backpack's gone. That's not good when you're out by Owl's Head.
Yeah, what a nightmare.
Would be a fun day.
What a nightmare. All right, Nick, music minute, and we got to keep this one to a minute here. So what do you got?
I will keep it tight tonight, as tight as I can.
All right.
So I've been on an electronic music kick again. I think Stomp would be probably proud. This week's album is The Last Goodbye by Odessa. Came out in 2022. Odessa consists of Harrison Mills and Clayton Knight, better known individually as Catacomb Kid and Beaches Beaches. They formed in 2012, shortly before Mills and Knight graduated from Western Washington University. It's the fourth studio album by the electronic music duo, and it's the follow-up album 5 years later to A Moment Apart, which was their third studio album. And this was very successful in its own right, and I'm a big fan of it, so that's why I was listening to this one. This album was nominated for a Grammy, so we get a little commercial success, Mike. Tried to throw that in there for you. Nice. It is notable, even though it's a dance electronic album. But it was nominated the year it came out for Best Electronic Dance Music Album. And the duo released this statement about the album, which kind of makes sense in a maturity sense if you've listened to some of their past albums. But they said, over the past few years, we've been able to reflect on who we are, what it means to do what we do, and in the end, who we are doing this for. We became focused and inspired by the impact our families and friends have imprinted on us and how we want to continue to echo that out as we move through this life. We found comfort in the fact that those who we love stay with us, that they become intrinsically part of us in a way. And I've been listening to it running lately, kind of all their albums. This is the newer one. Hadn't checked it out actually till this week and or past week and really loved it. And it generated 6 singles. So The Last Goodbye, Better Now, Love Letter, Behind the Sun, Wide Awake, and Light of Day were all singles off this album. So that is The Last Goodbye by Odessa. If you're into electronic or kind of dance music or just sort of pop music, I recommend you check it out.
All right, I will. I was listening to them a little bit earlier today, and I liked what I heard. I think I listened to The Last Goodbye and Better Now, so I will. I'll probably add some of those to my Spotify music mix, and I'll report back.
Get you pumped up.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes, exactly. All right, Nick, so we got some very important segue here. We're going to get back into hiking here. A listener has some kind words. A listener from what we would call a Flatlander, right? Can we call people from Texas Flatlanders?
I don't know. They have I think it's Guadalupe Peak or they have some mountain out there that's like, I think 8,000 or 9,000. So it's not all flat, but again, I've never been to Texas, and Texas is huge.
Yeah. Plus, I think we're both from Massachusetts. I don't think we can call. I don't think we have the right to call anyone a Flatlander.
No, it's pretty damn flat
Damn
here.
It, we are Flatlanders.
I'm a Swamplander.
I'm at like 50 feet above sea level right now.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so do you want to read the kind words, or do you want me to read them?
I'll read them. Okay. So this was great to hear. This was very cool.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
Thank you for these kind words. Mike Stomp Nick. Thursday of last week, I made the trip from Boston to New Hampshire to hike Welch Dickey at Stomp's recommendation. It was surreal seeing names on signs that I've heard about weekly since I started listening to the podcast over 4 years ago. The starting temp was 56 degrees. Took me 2 hours, 5 minutes, including a nice break. The grade did not disappoint. Started out a little undercast, but burned off quickly into a bluebird day. Thanks for the recommendation. At 1,893 miles from my front door, not sure when I will get back that way, but that is going to happen. I appreciate what you guys do. I understand that the target demographic is not a 53-year-old from Dallas, Texas, but I look forward to the show every week. Sincerely, Brian Hargrove. What a great note here.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you, Brian.
Yeah, and he picked he picked the gem. I mean, Welch Dickey is amazing, and it's cool to think that somebody from Dallas is listening to our little podcast and learning about the White Mountains that we love and getting up here and like experiencing it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'd be curious if your podcast or our podcast, I get still not used to that sometimes. Right. Our podcast is the reason that he came out here. But it's wild to me, like you come from Texas, you think of like the West Coast, like all the places he could go, and he came. The Northeast is a long ways from Texas. I got to assume more so than California.
Right. But no, but that's awesome. And Brian, the next time you get up here, hit us up and we'll take you.
Reach out.
There's other mountains equivalent to Welsh Dickey. Matter of fact, you're close to a bunch of gems in Waterville too. So definitely stay in touch, and we're glad that you got to experience it.
Yes, excellent.
Let's dive into some White Mountains history, shall we?
Awesome. So, all right. So we're going to skip. We got a couple of national stories, but we will skip those and put those in the next episode. But I did a little bit of a history bit here, Nick. I thought this was interesting. Do you love it, or are you just humoring?
No,
me?
I really do. I really do. I'm not being facetious.
Okay.
I do love your history segments.
All right. Awesome.
I might make fun of you for reading Appalachia all the time in your free time, but I do enjoy them.
Right. So I bit the bullet, and I actually got the ChatGPT Plus. And I was working on some projects this weekend. Matter of fact, for people that aren't familiar, I've mentioned this before, but the first 14 volumes of Appalachia, so essentially like the AMC's Appalachia, it's basically a log of all of their trip reports and their different committees and everything like that. It's all online and available in PDF format from 1876 to 1990. So you can really get like the first 50 years of 45 years of history of the AMC from its founding in 1876 all the way up to the early 1920s. 1920 the 1920s were a seminal period because that's when all the trails kind of connected. So I'll get into that in a future topic. But there's different sections of these journals. One of the sections is a section that is called the Improvements Committee. So you had like the Nomenclature Committee, which dealt with like naming the mountains. Then you had like the scientific like botanist committee that talked about geology and flowers and all that stuff. The Improvements Committee was talking about like new trails or trail maintenance. So it was very early sort of like trail maintenance discussion here. So I actually used ChatGPT to create a crawler that would look at the improvement sections on all of the AMC Appalachia Journals. So they had a rundown of like, this is the year, this is the trail, this is the people that worked on it, this is the improvement. I was able to create a table, basically an index of all 14 volumes, which showed the history of the progression of the trail maintenance that was done in those early days. And, starting in 1876, like they really started, like Boy Mountain Path is like right across from Appalachia. And then there was so much activity in and around Mount Adams. And essentially what you had was the Lowe family was right across from Appalachia and Lowe's Path. And then he had a friend, Dr. William Nowell, who was an early trail builder. He was from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and then got into trail building. And Dr. Nowell was actually the first... he was the head of the Improvements Committee, so he was the very first sort of trail maintenance organizer in the White Mountains. And essentially, like, you can look at this database, and I'll link this in the show notes, but it goes from 1876 to 1919, and it essentially is a seasonal yearly breakdown of all of the trail maintenance and work that they did in the early White Mountains.
So this timeline, did you just figure out, I know you mentioned 1920s when a lot of these started to connect and spiderweb together, but did you just pick this based off of like a whatever, like I'll just do the first 14 volumes or?
That's it. Yeah. That's all I had access to was the first 14 volumes.
Gotcha.
And there is a comprehensive history by the early trail crew from the 1920s upward that I'll add to this in the future.
Okay.
But
this is awesome. Like, this is really cool. If you like knowing anything about trails, I encourage you to check this out. Also, like we were talking about this in the reverse segment, the way we record it, but it is interesting how a lot of the first paths in the Whites were literally in the northern presidentials that were constructed. It
was like, we laugh about how there's this spider web of trails, but I think that's why is because they were the first trail builders. So they really learned. I think that they, if you think of the northern presidentials and the Appalachia and Lowe's Path in Israel Ridge as sort of like their laboratory on how to learn how to cut trails and do trail maintenance. That's essentially what was going on, is that all of the improvements committee members that were in charge of doing these trails learned how to do this pretty much in and around like Lowe's Path in Appalachia.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, right here you got Lowe's and King Ravine, 1877.
Right. So you've got essentially like in the 1870s, there's a lot of work in and around Mount Adams. They even had like King Ravine was initially cleared and marked in 1877. Lowe's Path was the primary way to ascend Mount Adams, and that's where Lowe and Noel and other family members. I think Dr. Noel's wife would go up with him as well. So there was a whole bunch of family that would actually climb on Adams quite a bit. And then they also went over to Carter Notch, and that's where they initially built the camp, which I think eventually turned into the Carter Notch Hut. And then they continued to do work annually into the 1880s on Lowe's Path, King Ravine. They start working on Osgood Path. Carter Notch Camp gets even more repairs into it. And then you've got like the Randolph Paths. And eventually they start spreading out. You see a little bit of work over on Carter Mariah. And then again, they expand Lowe's. They go back every year moving forward. They go to Lowe's and King Ravine. Then you start seeing a little bit of work in the mid-1880s on Franconia Ridge, the Carriage Road on Moosilauke. Then you start seeing reports of work being done on Twin Mountain, more work on Franconia Ridge. The late 1880s and into the 1890s, you can see that they pivoted over and really focused on relocating some sections of Carter Mariah and clearing some blowdowns. That's another thing that's interesting, Nick, is a lot of these early paths, they realized that they didn't build them optimally for drainage, and then there's a lot of reports of like, we had to redirect the path to improve the drainage situation on them.
Yeah. Again, that whole deal with they built them sort of with the fault line, so rain just rushes down them. I would imagine a lot of these too. Like you were saying with it, you can almost see the trial and error here of like having it relocating for better drainage is definitely not an uncommon thing on here.
Right. Yeah. And then by the late 1890s, you start seeing them doing work on Castle Ravine Path, and then they start getting into Israel Ridge. There's continuous work throughout the 1890s on Franconia Ridge Trail. And then Carter Mariah Range, they start working on a new section of Wildcat Ridge that starts in 1900. They finalize Osgood Path, and then they relocate Greenleaf Trail. They start building out like some of the paths around Randolph where a pond of safety is built out. Israel Ridge is basically repaired and put in signage in there in the early 1903 period. Lowe's Path every year gets improved upon, and then you start seeing, Castle Cascades Trail, and then more and more, it's just basically trail realignment and clearing on Wildcat, King Ravine, Israel Ridge, Greenleaf Trail, and it just goes on, and you can sort of see they spend like 2 or 3 seasons fixing a trail. Then they start talking about Hermit Lake in the early 1910s, and even talk about like trail rights transferred and maintenance initiated on Arethusa Falls. So by the 1816, 1817 period, they start picking up other trails that they're responsible for. And then there's actually in the like mid 1810s, the Randolph Mountain Club becomes a thing, and they transfer some of the property in and around Appalachia to the Randolph Mountain Club as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Is there any formal record of what trails were existence in the Whites because that's when Appalachia started, right? 1876.
Yeah.
The Appalachia Journal itself, I'm assuming, because it's 1 through 14.
Correct.
But was there anything that because Appalachia's always been from the Appalachian Mountain Club as well, and the Appalachian Mountain Club started in 1876. I guess that I was going to say it. I was realizing that as I was talking about it because of
I mean, there were early trails like in the 1850s, 1860s. There was the
Crawford Path was around
Crawford,
in 1819, I think.
Yeah, so, those were all around. Mostly they were trails that were maintained by people that were involved in like the hotel and guide service areas. So yeah, there was a fair amount of trails that were available, but when the AMC came in, it really became more of an organized thing that they would maintain them and fix them every year.
Yeah, like catalog and sort of index them to some degree and know what was going on and be able to actually articulate that. That's cool.
Right. And there's even some records of like the airline trail. They had to station like an AMC member to guard the trail to protect it from the logging operations at certain points.
Wow. Yeah. I kind of forget that a lot of because this is all pre when really logging ramped up a lot of this too.
Right. Yeah. And when you track back to that early, like 1876 period, really like, I think his name is Charles Lowe, was the first one. Yeah. Charles Lowe. And then, this doctor, William Gray Nowell, they were really the main two guys. So Nowell was like, he was the first head of the Council of Improvements. He was born in 1838. He was from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. He went to Bowdoin and then Harvard Divinity School. He was a Unitarian minister and a teacher in several states before he started to spend his summers from the 1870s onward in Randolph, New Hampshire. And then he joined the Appalachian Mountain Club as an original member and became its first counselor of improvements, overseeing all of the trail construction efforts in the White Mountains. So in 1875, 1876, he worked with Charles Lowe to cut and blaze a route from Lowe's house in Randolph to the summit of Mount Adams, which they completed in the summer of 1876. So spent 1875 cutting it, and then they got up there the next summer. And Noel actually kept a journal documenting multiple ascents of Mount Adams, his trail making activities, and then also AMC's first field meeting, which was in North Conway in July of 1876. And then he went over, again, you can see the documentation. He started helping to connect routes on Moriah and Carter Dome and other peaks in the Presidential Range. And then they also built the first log cabin, which is about 2.5 miles up Lowe's Path, which is the site of an old AMC camp. And then he spent his summer up there from like 1890 to 1907, recording weather, wildlife, trail work, and visitors in the cabin registers. I think this is probably where maybe the log cabin is, or I don't know. I think we're going to have some people on from Randolph Mountain in the future. They'll probably be able to tell us exactly where it is.
We will be.
Yeah. So, and then he kept a log cabin register record, which described arrivals, routes taken, mountain weather, trail maintenance work that he did. And yeah, like he was a key collaborator with Charles Lowe. He was an early member of the AMC. He worked with all of these early trail builders like J. Rayner Edmonds and Lewis Cutter and other Randolph Mountain Club members such as William Sargent. We've talked about these names before, and it's really like the guy played a foundational role in opening up access to the peaks in and around the White Mountains, and in particular the development of Mount Adams and the neighboring summit. So really an interesting history there. And with ChatGPT, I can scan thousands of pages of these documents to find cool tidbits. So I'm gonna go nuts, Nick.
Yeah, this is very cool.
Yes.
I've been just reading through this all the work descriptions and projects. This is really neat.
Yeah, I have a million ideas.
I mean, haven't even we'll get into it, but you haven't just been in the northern presidentials, and I mean, my trail's up there too. But you kind of, I think, forget sometimes how literally people have been recreating and enjoying nature in that area of the Whites, in particular, for literally hundreds of years now.
Right.
It's pretty cool when you think of like some things change, but you figure the harsh weather and sort of the changing of the seasons and how the trails continue to get eroded in spots and have to get rerouted. Right. It's been happening for hundreds of years now, and you're trodden in upon the same ground. So it's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And then again, it gives me a new perspective. Like I don't think of, Appalachia is always busy and crowded and whatnot, but I think of it as basically like Dr. Noel and Charles Lowe was their laboratory where they learned how to do this, and then they passed that knowledge on to the next generation. In the next generation. And now me and you, we got a chance to do a little trail adoption and do our little part now.
Yeah, it comes sort of full circle. Everybody sort of gets to take their turn and do it. But man, cutting a trail up to, that must have been something, cutting trails up to like King Ravine to be those first guys.
Unbelievable.
It must have been wild to be able to do that. And man,
unbelievable. All right. So let's go through just quickly here. We're going to get into Slasher stickers. So if you want stickers, you can go ahead and get those at Ski Fanatics or at Spinner's Pizza Parlor in Andover, Mass. And then if you want to get Slasher swag, it's getting to be sweatshirt season soon. Check out our bonfire shop and choose between our super popular hoodies, classic or V-neck tees and more. The color selection is great. Rumor is Mrs. Stomp picked all the colors, and these sweatshirts are priced to move, so help spread the word about Slasher and Represent Today. And then if you're interested, you can send us a little bit of donation through Slasher's Buy Me a Coffee site. Donations help to pay for our web hosting, distribution, and live events. And, we appreciate that.
Hey, hold my beer. It's time to find out what Mike and Stomp are drinking on this week's Beer Talk.
And then, Nick, now's the part of the show where we talk about what we're drinking for beer.
So I am drinking a Whaler's Muse IPA, version 13. So apparently it's the 13th time they've made this. Oh. But it's good. Just a normal IPA. I'm still kind of going through some of these Father's Day beers I got. And it's tasty.
Right.
It's good stuff.
Right. Yeah. I brought my beer stash up north this weekend and didn't end up using it, but I kept it in Papa's fridge in Brownfield. So all I have left now is a lunch from Maine Beer Company. So I'm not complaining.
Very nice. Yep. It's a good beer. I like how they have those tall bottles too. It's kind of unique.
Yes. Yeah. It's a lot of beer. It's a lot of beer for me. So I needed to numb the pain on my finger, which I'll talk about in a minute. But Nick, you had a good milestone here. So let's talk about your presidential traverse with Sarah Beth and Jay. So very impressive. Break it down for us.
Yeah. So Sarah Beth's one of my cousins on my dad's side, and her husband Jay. Gotten kind of close to them over the years. They're both big skiers up at Jay Peak in Vermont, and they do quite a bit of hiking. Sections of the Long Trail. They hike Jay up there a lot. They've hiked in the Whites, and they actually did a presidential traverse with 2 overnights, I believe 7 or 8 years ago. So it's quite a ways back. They just kind of planned it with their friends and basically stayed at Madison Springs and then stayed at Lakes of the Clouds. I guess kind of their second day on that trip, they really didn't have anything. And kind of we got to talking about it actually materialized out of Jay was training for a 50-miler, which he refused at the time when I was talking to him about to call it an ultra. But he was trying to get me to do this 50-miler that was out in New York, I think sort of in the Hudson River Valley. And he crushed that. And what I did say is I'm like, I'm not going to commit to doing that with you just because I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm 100% for that yet. But I will absolutely do a single day Prezi or something like that with you. So we talked about that back in March, and then we were texting back and forth, and they kind of pinned me down a little bit with it. Not that I was adverse to doing it, but they were like, "Hey, we need to plan this because it's coming up." So we picked basically this past weekend, and then we picked a weekend in August to just watch the weather because I'm like, that's what I did last time. I did a Prezi with my buddy Mike Cordero back in 2021, I think. At this point, we did it in August. So I'm like, well, pick these weekends. If it looks good, like the first weekend that looks good, we'll just go for it. So the weather did look good this weekend. Temperatures and stuff ended up being perfect. Unfortunately, that morning, like wildfire, I'm sure like you guys saw wildfire haze snuck in and like nobody forecasted it. I think the high pressure dropped in a little bit stronger than they were thinking. The only thing I was a little concerned reading the forecast in the morning as we were heading there, because the observers were even saying that they were out overnight and like it was making their eyes water and they were coughing and stuff. So I'm like, we'll see how this goes. I kind of didn't say anything to them about it. I'm like, if it gets that smoky, then we'll do what we need to do if we get to Adams and we're like coughing or something. But it ended up not being that bad, albeit a bit hazy. But yeah, we started up. I kind of gave them the option. I'm like, we can go up Valley Way, but there's not really any views. And you guys, I didn't know at the time that they thought they had done Valley Way. It turns out they did Airline once we got up there. But I'm like, we can go up Airline, cut over to the cutoff and start up to Madison sort of that way. So that's what we did. Temperatures were fantastic. We could see that haze in the morning, but it was like, I don't know, like 50s probably in the morning. We got going, I think, around 4:45, probably got there a little bit later. Started a little bit later than we intended, but it was fine. We had headlamps on for maybe like half an hour, 40 minutes. Got to the hut and then shot up to Madison. And then the other sort of difference, I guess, we pulled that I think just from a normal Prezi traverse is I gave them the option to go up Star Lake Trail because I'm like, it's going to be a little bit more steep in spots than Airline. But I think it's probably one of the most beautiful trails to like ascend Adams, at least that I've done on that side. I think has way more interesting views than Airline. So we went up Star Lake, had fun, went over to Adams, and then kind of made that sort of, I told them like it's a slog section. I always think of it, it's not technically difficult as far as elevation gain, but moving from Adams to Thunderstorm Junction to Edmonds Cole and then back up to Jefferson's just kind of, it's a long ways. I think you got like another 900 foot ascent up to Jefferson. We spent a good bit of time on Jefferson. It seemed like everybody must have been going up Caps Ridge and doing Jefferson that day. There was like 50, 60 people hanging up there, and it was probably right around noontime that we got there. We took a pretty good long break there, and it was funny because I had sort of a timetable in my mind. Jay actually wanted to do it in faster than 12, and Sarah Beth was like, we're not going to try to do that, at least moving time. And kind of I told them, I'm like, listen, it's a beautiful day. Like, if you guys want to try to go for a goal, like, we can go, but like, we should just enjoy the day. Like, we'll get out. We got headlamps. Like, I wasn't worried about it. So we kind of took our time on Jefferson, maybe a little bit longer than we should have by the end of the day. Then went over to Clay, which Clay, they were kind of teasing me about this because I'm like, oh, it's not bad to go up Clay. And Clay actually has like 3 sub summits. You kind of go up and down. Went down that up to Washington, which I was telling Sarah Beth, and I'm glad she agreed. But I think is honestly to that point is, while it's like 1,000-foot climb from where you descend from Clay on Gulf side, it's actually probably one of the easier ascents in terms of you got like 1,000 feet in a mile or something like that. So I think as far as the trail and path, like it's better than going up to Jefferson or Adams or something. It's not quite as bouldery. Some people might disagree, but that's just kind of my opinion. We ended up getting water up there, had to wait in line to get water with people that were probably coming up from the COG and stuff, which is always this is where like all of us were getting maybe a little bit salty when you come there and you're like, the summit sign line was just ridiculousness. I'm like, we're not even going to try to do that. It was kind of, it's a vibe up there, especially when you come all the way from like Appalachia. You're kind of just like, I just want to get up here, get water, and get back to like not feeling like there's thousands of people around you. It's always weird. They were both kind of commiserating with me and kind of saying how it just felt different. We found out there was a spade of water outside after, so that was nice. We didn't have to wait as long. Then we made our way down to lakes. Kind of like you said, we were talking about last week, it is always interesting how the hustle and bustle of the summit with the COG trains going and the auto road, and then all of a sudden you're going down to lakes, and by that time too, it's like we're creeping into like early afternoon, so you're kind of getting past the bubble of people I think that are up there doing day hikes. And from there on out, we had a good long break at lakes. We all had some food and water, made up to Monroe, and from there on down, like we didn't see like a ton of people.
You're done basically once you get past lakes.
Yeah. So that was really nice. Like that's exactly what I told him. I was like, it's basically all downhill from there, but realistically, you still have about half the mileage left to do for the day, even though you only got like 1,000 feet. But we went over to Monroe, Little Monroe, and then we actually went to do the loop over Franklin, which I wasn't aware of now, but not that people don't talk about Franklin. It's like the Prezi Peak that gets no love up there. Mm-hmm. Technically not a president. But we went over to it, but it's actually an out and back path now. And the AMC or someone's been doing really nice work there off Crawford Path. It's actually got like wooden stairs and like graded and stuff. It's super nice going up to Franklin. It's just an out and back. So we did that and then made our way all the way down, basically to Eisenhower, up and over Pierce. And it was funny at this point. We crossed, I don't know what the deal was with the group. We were trying to guess the dynamics, but there was this group with, it looked like 2 guides and people that were, I don't want to say they were hikers, but like tourist hikers. And they seemed to be at odds with perhaps what their guides were saying. And they were asking me for directions and where stuff was at one point, which was funny. They actually like were griping to me because there's like the Mount Eisenhower. Is it the Mount Eisenhower trail that just like dips down into the Dry River Wilderness, more or less? The guy's like, I get to the intersection. He's like, but it says Mount Eisenhower this way. But I'm like, yeah, but that's not the way to Mount Eisenhower. They called it Mount Eisenhower because it goes up to Mount Eisenhower from the wilderness area. And so that was kind of a thing. And this group also too, like there's sort of this thing with hiking etiquette where I feel like if you pass people, like you should try to keep ahead of them. But this group kept sprinting ahead of us, and then we'd sort of pass them when they'd be taking a break, like 10 minutes in front of us, plodding along. And that happened like 5 or 6 times. Finally, when we got to Eisenhower, we were going to pass them, and then they turned around and asked me to take a picture of them at the summit. So being the nice gentleman that I am, I did take the camera and took a picture quick of all of them. And then we pretty much bolted back down to Pierce and eventually lost them around there. So I'm like, the last thing we want is to be like having to leapfrog with these people on Crawford Path with headlamps on and all that. But yeah, we got to Pierce, and I think at that point the sunscreen was really stinging my eye because it was sweaty. So I had to wash that out. We all had sort of our little things going on, and yeah, we got down Crawford Path to 302, I think around like 8:45, 8:30ish. So we had about a little over 13 hours moving, and we were out for like almost 17 hours. So it was a long day, but we really soaked in the time above tree line. We very much enjoyed. Big shout out to Sarah Beth and Jay. Like, I think they both said that it was more challenging than they thought. Jay actually said that he thought it was more difficult than the 50 miler he just did in New York, which was like 50 miles, 3,500 feet or so of elevation gain. He was just saying that the terrain is just so unrelenting. Right. And what beat them up the most, they were saying both of them, is just the descent out from Washington.
Yeah.
And the fact that you do have to go up and down a little bit. And then Crawford Path is just, it's a nice trail. I haven't been on it without snow actually in the last 2 or 3 times I've been there. And it is very eroded, very washed out, roots, rocks everywhere. And it was the only spot all day that we hit any mud. So that was great to hit right at the end of the day to have to slow down a little bit. But all in all, we had a fantastic day. It was great to get out for my second time doing that. I definitely appreciated it a little bit more. I think I was less nervous about, like, we were very much like, me and my buddy Mike Cordero were very much trying to like make sure we were at certain places at a certain time. And I think there's just that sort of a nervousness about doing something like a bigger hike like that for the first time by yourselves. And this time I was a little bit more relaxed. And they were kind of looking to me a little bit for where to go. So it was a cool vibe. I took a ton of pictures. We had a ton of fun. Had some cheeseburgers and went to bed. Passed out. Excellent.
Well, congratulations. I know that you've been wanting to do a big one. Maybe you might have a Pemi loop in you coming up, but this was a good one.
Thanks. Yeah, we had a blast. So on the opposite side of the whites, what was going on with you guys?
Yeah, so Saturday, our friend Paul Lamar and his girlfriend Deanna had been working. Nick, obviously we did a great hike with them over the winter in isolation. They joined us, and they've been working on their 4,000 footer list. So they were at their final hike. So I was happy to join them with a pretty big crowd of people that were.
Yeah, it sounds like they had a crew.
We definitely had a crew. So we met at Lincoln Woods and celebrated Paul and Deanna's 48 finish, and then. Yeah, it was a good group. There was some friends of the shows there, and then some people that I knew from social media that I hadn't met before. So it was all fun, and we ended up taking the. So Lincoln Woods was packed, so I had to park way down the road and walk in, which was fine. But we ended up taking the Black Pond Bushwhack out, so we skipped over the couple of the water crossings and went through. So time we got through the Black Pond. Bushwhack, then we started to split up because we had to, you get the wilderness regulations and stuff. So we had to
how was it following the Black Pond Bushwhack in the summer? Because I know we had done it for your winter. Yeah, it's like a beaten out herd path now.
Yeah, okay. The only weirdness about that path, like there is that, like when you clear Black Pond, there's like a braiding of the path, which it's basically like it is two paths. There's one that I think you can go to the right, and then you can actually bushwhack out from there to Franconia Falls. If you go around Black Pond, but then we just stayed to the left.
That makes sense. Yeah.
This time, but it's just a path. It's very easy to stay on. But then we had to split up a little bit. So I think I alternated between like being in the front and then being in the back, and then we would kind of meet up a little bit on the trail, but mostly like there was like 3 different kind of groups that were coming and going at the time. So. All good. We were like, we're going up the slide for sure because that's going to be the only time that we get views. So there was a group of us that headed up the slide a little bit. We hiked with shout out to Sarah and Oakland. So Oak is like a 6-year-old. I think he's finishing his 4,000 footer next week. Great kid, fun to talk to.
Okay, cool. I've definitely seen them probably just Instagram or something. Before.
Yeah. So really great mom and son duo that have been getting out a lot, and such a good kid, like super positive, really talkative, and great energy, and it was really a joy to watch the trail through his eyes because he's just like such a great kid and inspiration. But yeah, so anyway, we headed up the slide, and you forget like it was like. You get like 1,600 feet of climbing, and a lot of the part of the slide that you have a view on is only like probably about 400 or 600 feet, and then you go into the trees. So I was kind of like, I'm going to just jet up ahead, and I think like me, Jake, Paul, Gamel, and then Steve from the Cape, we were kind of in the front, and then we hustled up the slide. Got some views, got some pictures, and then we started heading out. And Owl's Head Slide is really like eroded, and there's some sections where you're like literally climbing up like roots and whatnot. So I was pretty far ahead. I think Jake and Paul were a bit behind me, maybe about 100, 150 feet behind. And I was just fiddling around. I made a big mistake. So I just to let the listeners know, like I injured myself pretty severely. My hand, luckily not my ankle, and I'll get into it in a second. But I got up to maybe about 400 feet below the summit, and I was trying to calibrate between my watch and Gaia. And my watch was telling me I was at 3,500, but I thought I was at 3,600. So I just looked at my phone for a minute to validate. And I was like, yeah, I'm at 3,600. Put my phone away, and I was kind of I just wasn't in the game for a second. And you got to be 100% focused. And I just put my foot up on a log. The log was a little bit wet. My foot just slipped back down off the log. Instead of like going forward, it slipped. And I just kind of went forward a little bit. And it was like a nothing type of fall, but I went forward in a way that literally just bent my pinky finger completely backwards upon itself. So basically like the top half of my pinky completely like snapped off and broke and touched like the other part. And what ended up happening is that it was such a severe break that it ripped open the skin and exposed the tendon on my finger, and my finger just literally like blew up in like 2 seconds. And the thing I learned about this is that when you do have a wound like that, you have to get on it pretty quickly because your heart is elevated. You know, my heart.
Oh yeah, you've been jacked up like going up the owl since like you said 1,600 feet and whatever, a mile and a half or less.
Right.
So yeah,
exactly. Wow. So like my hand was gushing blood. There was like people that were talking about. They're like, oh, who bled all over that log? Like people were coming up and down. And luckily, I yelled out to Jake, and I was like, "Jake, I got a problem here. I need help." And I was like, basically, like, "Hey," Jake came up to me, and God bless Jake because he like gets squeamish. He couldn't look at it. He took one look at it and said, "I'm not," because like the tendon was exposed, and it was really bad.
Yeah.
So
that picture was gnarly.
Yeah, the picture was gnarly. I'll post it in the story eventually, but so I had my first experience with like some, field medicine on like a relatively severe injury. So luckily, like, I had first aid. I wasn't too concerned. And I was like, hey, Jake, can you get my first aid out of my pack? Cause I would bleed all over I wasn't able to like, I was pretty calm.
Did you have your hand above your head or did you have your hand over your finger?
I didn't even think about that. I was just sort of like, I was like, oh shit, I got to get my first aid out of my pack. But luckily Jake immediately came. I was like, I got everything. So we agreed that he gave me like a disinfectant wipe. So I wiped that, and then I was able to sort of hold the wipe against the wound. And eventually this wound took like 5 stitches, so it was pretty big. And Jake got out gauze. He had a gauze wrap and he had a gauze pad. I was like, give me the wrap. And I was able to wrap my finger with the gauze. And then he had tape. So then I went around and I wrapped my finger with the tape. And basically that just stopped the bleeding. I had it pretty tight. And I gave it a minute or two. And I said, Jake, I think this is good. And then, I basically was like, you know what? This hurts like hell if I touch it. But if I don't move it, it doesn't hurt at all, really. So really, I just went up to I said, let's keep going up. I got up to the summit. I had my chair with me. So I set up my summit chair. And then we waited about an hour and 20 minutes for Paul and Deanna to get up there. And then by that time, I had my heart rate had settled down. And the wound was basically closed up at that point. But, we hiked out. It was fine. And it was actually nice. There's this guy, Tyson, who I think we're going to have on the show in the future. He's friends with Paul. He set up like a little barbecue in Lincoln Woods. So we had like a keg of beer. We had like hot dogs and burgers.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So which was really nice as a way to finish up. And then, we had some friends that had been hiking in other areas that showed up. And it was a great way to end the day. I wasn't in a rush to get out of there, but when I got home, Nick, I had to take the gauze off and unwrap it. And then my wife took like one look at it. Even my father-in-law looked at it. He was like, yeah, we need to go. Yeah. So we went to the emergency room in Bridgeton and
oh, right. I'm thinking you were up in Maine.
I was in Maine, so we went to Bridgeton.
Yeah, okay.
And if you're going to get injured, that emergency room is sweet because literally like they let me right in. No problem. And got the x-rays. They set my bone. And then...
Now, did you know when you did it? Did you know like immediately that you broke your finger?
Not immediately. At first, I was like, "Oh, I think I like tore the nail off my finger," and then, but then I watched it literally like just expand up, and it was was like so swollen. I was like, "Oh yeah, I definitely cracked." But
I give you too. I don't know if kudos is the right word, but like I feel like if that happened to me, I'd be like, I need to get the F out of here, like right now. Like, but where you just kind of like settle down and like it's bleeding, like I'm not bleeding through it anymore. I'm kind of like,
yeah. I was like, look, I don't want to make this like, I don't want to make a whole thing out of this and make people worried. And I said, if I knock it, it's gonna hurt for sure. But I was like, I think I can go slow enough where if I don't hit it, it won't really bother me that much. And Jake had tied it pretty tight, so it was essentially like just cutting off all circulation on my pinky anyway. So
wow, that's wild. And I know you mentioned too is your dominant hand.
Yeah,
so I'm like
lefty.
coming down Owl's Head must have been interesting without having your dominant hand to hold on to stuff.
Yeah, I mean that kind of solidified that we ended up going down the Brutus bushwhack. Deanna didn't want to go down the slide either, so they were all decided they were going to go down Brutus. So I think Steve and a couple of other folks went down the slide, but most of us went down Brutus. And then, we got, it was a pretty warm day and we didn't really have any issues with the haze other than you could see it. Yeah. We got water and, it was a lot of laughs, a lot of good times. It wasn't really that big of a deal at the end, but but I'm sort of off hiking for the next 2 weeks or so until this thing heals.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because like going to where our timeline was, like I think I got just through Pinkham Notch and it was getting like I turned my phone back in service or whatever, and I'm seeing all these pictures. You're like, yeah, took it to the emergency room, whatever. Got 5 stitches. I'm like, what the hell did I miss when I didn't attend with you guys on this hike?
Yeah,
man. So. But and didn't want to say congrats again, Paul and Deanna, for finishing your 48, and they're both awesome folks to hike with and hang out with.
Yeah,
so
awesome people.
Big congrats.
Excellent. All right.
And we would have made it over if I didn't get out of the woods at 9:15.
Exactly.
At night.
Yeah, so. All right. So let's skip the notable hikers this week just because we are a little bit behind and we'll pick that up next week. But we're going to go to a segment here with our friends Heidi, Jen, and Cathy. These are the Summit Sisters. So we met them at the 4,000 footer AMC award ceremony and fun group, and immediately from talking with them we knew that we wanted to have them on to chat away. So they're going to give us a breakdown of a little bit about the North Country and a little bit about sort of their friendship group, and hopefully this is going to inspire everyone to want to continue to get out there and also to try to just keep it top of mind, to be social, make some friends, and you've got more power in a group, and like literally from talking to them, like he really stands out to us. So let's go into that segment, Nick, and then we'll come back out the other side.
All right.
It's time for Slasher's Guest of the Week. Very cool. Very cool.
All right. Welcome to the, so Heidi, Jen, and Cathy, the Summit Sisters. So Heidi, what's the origin of that? Like, is that just, did you guys make that name up yourselves, or is that something that somebody bestowed upon you?
No, actually, Mike, great question. The Summit Sisters just happened a few weeks ago. I mean, especially when we wanted to really communicate with the slasher team, because we knew that, with the Instagram and all that, it was really important to have some sort of cool name. So Cathy's daughter, Olivia, is in marketing and promotion type work, and she gave us all sorts of ideas, and we landed on the Summit Sisters.
Boy.
Yeah.
Nick, they're backed by big marketing. We better watch out.
I know, we have to be careful.
She's not here.
I don't know if we're ready for this.
The industry, the marketing powerhouses have lined this up for us. So that's good. But I like that name.
Yeah,
so is there just 3 of you that are Summit Sisters, or is there like a whole universe of people that are tied into you?
So the 3, we are the 3.
Core group.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We're the core.
Yeah. And but what we've and one of the focuses of our conversation tonight are the connections and the relationships that we've built along the way with the hiking.
Right.
And so there's been different people. Jen has a different story on the folks that she's brought in. Certainly Cathy and I, when we first started doing this together, and she'll tell her story. There's just been different people that have been on our journey.
Right. Yeah, it's very similar to like it's the same kind of experience. I think, and Nick would echo this too. Between the the Puds podcast and the Slasher podcast, is I was a solo hiker most of the time. Like I was friends with Stomp, and we would get out every once in a while. But over the years, especially with the winter hiking, like more and more, my wife was kind of like, you need to find some friends and like
Definitely.
Right. So, all right. So we got a little bit off track here, ladies. So I'm going to introduce you in a minute, but I think, Nick, just to give a little bit of background for the listeners. So we met Heidi, Jen, and Cathy at the 4,000 footer award ceremony. When was that? In April already? How did 3 months go by?
I think it was April, right? I know it doesn't feel that long. Summer's flying by.
I know it is. It's unfortunately flying by. But so we met a bunch of people at the 4,000 footer, and then I think Heidi, was it you who pitched it to us to say, hey, we want to come on, and we were like, yeah, definitely, we'll come. Okay, Heidi did.
That would be Heidi.
Heidi did.
Kathy and Jen stood behind me, and once this is how we do this work, especially on the trail and connecting. As soon as I start chatting people up, then they're ready. I warm them up.
There you go. All right. So we're going to do rapid fire questions, and one of them was like, who's the biggest talker? So I think we already got an answer on that.
I'm getting the vibe.
Right. So, all right. But anyway, so we met a bunch of people, and, anytime we're doing these networking events, we kind of put it on our list, like, okay, this would be a good guest or whatever. So we definitely had a couple of leads. So we talked to you, and you wanted to come on. And I think the recollection was that, that we wanted to get a little bit of a perspective on a local view, especially like northern New Hampshire area. And you guys have been, getting out pretty consistently. And honestly, I do feel like inside baseball, Jen and Cathy and Heidi, like we sometimes like we're a little too bro heavy on the podcast sometimes, right? So it's good to get like a different perspective. So. Yeah. So we're happy to have you. But so why don't we just start off, Jen, if you could just introduce yourself, give a little bit of background about yourself, and maybe a bit about what got you into hiking and outdoor activity and how long you've been at it.
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Jen. And so I grew up in northern New York State in the middle of the woods. And way a long time ago, my mom would do things like send me off to my neighbors on the trail through the woods when I was like 8 years old. And so I think that really set me up for feeling comfortable in the woods. And so then I kind of moved on and just always outside and playing, and went to college at Plymouth State, where I did a lot of hiking, some climbing. And then after college, kind of veered off, started a family, and did a little bit of kid-friendly hiking with my family. But then I was also a teacher at that time, and we had an outdoor club at school. So as a leader with that outdoor club, we worked together with Appalachian Mountain Club, taking groups of kiddos out. And we built up throughout a school year till they actually would hike Mount Washington at the end of the year. Yeah. And so what I really began to love about that was watching students and seeing what it did to their character, how they could find success outside. And so I've been hiking as an adult and really have gotten back into hiking in the last 3 or 4 years. And Heidi brought me in last year. She was working on finishing up her 4,000 footers. And so I'm back at it fully and really love supporting not only this team, but really reaching out beyond it to support others with their goals. So.
Awesome. So, question about the group hike. So you got involved with the students. How many hikes would it take for you to get up to the point where you could identify the students that were ready to do Mount Washington?
Well, here's the way we did it, Mike. We always started out, we'd go up Ammonoosuc Ravine Trail, and we stay at lakes, and we took Appalachian Mountain Club guides, and then we would summit the next day. So it was broken up into 2 days, and we split it up so that all students were successful. We had our groups of student hikers, small enough, with an Appalachian Mountain Club guide and the teacher, so that all students could make it to lakes. And so we would do lots of hikes in the fall, like try to do them at least every other week through September and October. And then starting up in the spring, we would do them often, like every other week, at least, if not weekly. So frequent hikes.
Yeah, I feel like just getting to lakes is a win for the kids, but then you got a bunch of options. You go to Monroe or Mount Washington. But what's the general ratio of chaperones to students? Because the reason I ask is because we see a lot of issues with student groups from time to time. So just curious what your perspective
so
is.
Then we tried to keep it like 1 to 4. And so we might have 8 students in a group, but with 2 chaperones. But sometimes they might, sometimes we'd have a chaperone at the front and the back, and so they might kind of drift into a group of 4 and another group of 4. But pretty general vicinity. So generally 1 to 4.
Right. Yeah. And I didn't even think of that. Like, so if you're organizing a hiking group and you're not sure like that, that's a good thing to remember is that the AMC does have guides that you can work with to help you with that.
We're so fortunate up here because a lot of times, we want to get kiddos out onto the trails, and maybe that's not something that their families do. And so AMC is really, really supportive of that happening through schools and working together, really to build those relationships.
Right. All right. Well, more to come with you, Jen. But Cathy, why don't you introduce yourself and give a little bit of background about yourself? And
thank you for having us. My name is Cathy, and like Jen, I have always loved the outdoors. I grew up doing a lot of different activities, and I moved to Jefferson, New Hampshire. We have a 400-acre dairy farm, so that keeps us pretty busy.
Wow.
And I'm fortunate enough to have a view from the Kilkenny Range to the Presidentials down to Cannon. So I get to wake up every morning and see these beautiful mountains and, kind of developed a respect for them, seeing them in the different seasons and the different weather. And I really became active hiking probably about 6 years ago. I had a total knee replacement. And I said to myself, I am not going through this pain for nothing. I started doing some walking, and with Heidi's encouragement and others' encouragement, started doing the 4,000 footers. My first one was Star King. And I said, I did this one. And, when I started, I didn't have in mind that I was going to complete a list. But for my 60th birthday, we went up and did Crawford Path and stayed at the huts, and that kind of hooked me. And I said, I've got to complete this list as well. And so now, 5 years after starting this endeavor, I have 4 left to do. Oh, wow. I'm going to finish them this year, fingers crossed. And, I really do it for the challenge, the support, the social aspects, and for me, it's all about the view. I love getting to the top and seeing that view.
We all love views. Yeah. Sure. What do you have left for your 4,000 footers?
So I have Adams and Madison.
Great ones. Jackson
and Cannon.
Cool.
Last year when Heidi was working on hers, I really wanted to get the isolations, the Owl's Head. I wanted to get those long, difficult ones out of the way. Mentally difficult more than physically difficult. So I hear a lot of people ending on like isolation, and to me that's not a fun one to end on.
Yeah, I know the guide, at least the previous edition. I haven't read the very end of the 4,000 footer guide, but I know isolation was the leader for finishing for quite a while in the AMC. I think everybody just looks at the distance and the mileage and stuff. Kind of like Owl's Head usually is in the back, but good for you for getting those done. Like you have all awesome peaks left to finish on. Like none of those are.
I'm really excited about getting them finished. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yep.
Right. So Cathy, a lot of people and I even do this myself. Like I find myself, I drive 115A and I look to my left. And I look to my right and I go, oh, it would be so nice to live like right here, right? Looking, at the Presidentials and Cherry Mountain and all this beautiful area. But like, I feel like I romanticize it. Like it's not always that easy living in like in Jefferson, but like, can you give your perspective? Like how nice is it to live in a big giant farm in that area?
So I actually live on the next street over. My farm. That's not my farm, but I live on the next street over. And, there are some days that it's beautiful, picture perfect, weather's gorgeous, everyone's happy. Then there are days that, we're out in the field until dark and the equipment's broke down and you still got to get the hay in. But Jefferson is a wonderful, wonderful community to raise a family in.
Right.
My husband goes back generations. I moved up from Massachusetts, but it's truly that small community, right? That's one of the things that we like about the North Country is we support each other, not only in the hikes that we do as the Summit Sisters and others, but supporting one another in any endeavor, whether it's farming or whatever project you've got going on. It's a great place.
Awesome. So, and you said it's cows, right?
Dairy. Yeah, we have dairy and beef cows. Yep.
Right, so one of my little hobbies that I like, I'll give you a little insight. We're going to go off topic here for a second. So one of my favorite little hobbies is I like watching YouTube videos of the I don't know, I think are they called farriers when they do the hoofs for the cows?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, I love when the cows
hoof trimmers, but
the hoof when they get the block and like they're limping, but then they get the block and they're all fixed. Like I'm so happy for the cow.
Why is that so fascinating to watch? For me, it's I've heard about it, and I'm just like, well, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's I don't know what it is. It's just so satisfying to see them flicking the corium off of the and then the horse. It's got the big, you're kind of guessing and saying like, oh, this is where the bad spot is, but then he finds it in like a spot that you don't expect, then he's like puts the salicylic acid on it, and everything's okay. So
apparently, I have some research to do.
You may need to hire me to come do the hoof trimming.
Well, you know what? Stop by anytime.
Oh my God, the cows would be like they'd be all limping after me. So anyway, all right. Well, so more to come, Cathy. But so Heidi, so it sounds like you're the ringleader. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think so. It's interesting when we were practicing. Cathy said, "Oh, we should do it with Heidi, Jen, Cathy, because that's how we line up whenever we go up on our hikes. That's just how it's kind of happened.
It's really so I don't run into any snakes. They clear the path for me.
That's a good thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we did see. I think we saw one snake this weekend, but like it's pretty rare. Like snakes aren't that big of a problem. So I guess until you see one.
Spider webs, on the other hand, I was gonna say that's always good to have someone to take the spider webs up front.
That's why really that's the truth of why we put Heidi in front. Right.
Someone's got to do it.
Somebody's got to take it.
Yep.
So I don't want to take time, but there is a great story about going up Owl's Head.
Yeah, go ahead.
Of course.
On the cliff. Yeah. So Cathy was behind me, and what Cathy didn't say about enjoying the views is that she's also the photographer. She takes a lot of photos. Now, when we did Bonds, she had to limit because we did it in one day. But so I'm up ahead and I'm waiting for Cathy, and there are 2 garter snakes, and I have had experience with Cathy in snakes, and it's kind of like.
It's not good.
It's not good. It's very shocking. And I was afraid that if she saw these, she'd be going over the cliff. So I'm like, come on, Cathy, let's go. Come on, you got to move.
And I'm like, let me take this picture.
And she had no idea. She's, Heidi, what's going on? Once I got her by the snakes. And I said, well, 2 garter snakes back there sunning themselves, and I just needed to get you by them, and we need to keep going. So.
Right, yeah, just don't say anything. So I've actually, the only snakes I've really seen on trail have been these like little tiny ones, and they'll slither by on a rock for a second. They do startle you for a minute, but I haven't really seen too many big ones. So hopefully it will keep it that way. So
yeah.
But so Heidi, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and how you got into this this crazy thing called hiking?
Sure. So I grew up in rural northern New England, very similar to the stories that you heard Jen tell, and spent a lot of time, of the 70s, playing outside, biking, walking, just doing all sorts of things. And I was also in 4-H, being, rural area, it's all about 4-H and working for Cooperative Extension now. I've had that experience. And my dad worked for New Hampshire and Vermont Fish and Game. So I've always been, outdoor experiences throughout my younger life. In my 20s, I met my husband, Larry, who's also been part of our support team. And he introduced me to the Appalachian Mountain Club. We actually have raised 5th generation Appalachian Mountain Club members. We spent a lot of time at 3 Mile Island Camp, which is down on Lake Winnipesaukee. That's one of the AMC camps, the only one that is on a big lake, Lake Winnipesaukee. So that's where we volunteer, as well as spend a lot of time down there, especially in the off season. We manage one of the fall weekends, and hopefully maybe we can get you all out there at some point. So that was my outdoor experience. But as far as the hiking goes, I didn't seriously get involved in hiking until about 2007. And my influencers were my youngest son, Nicholas, and good friends, and also spent a lot of time hiking, and they also mentored me, Jay and Ginger Majowski. And that's how I got started. After we did Lafayette, and my son and Jay went off and did Lincoln, right? Go Lafayette, Lincoln. Ginger and I went down the trail, Bridle, and she says, Heidi, you really need to start doing the 48. And so that's when I started in 2007. It took me a while to get done. I mean, Cathy's been boom, boom, boom. But for me, it took me yeah, right. So, but that's how the hiking all started. We've talked a little bit about, how with the team and, how the sisters got created. But it's really been my mission in life, both professionally and personally, is to really move. I'm health and well-being with my career. So it's really important to cheerlead others to do this as well. I mean, that's been one of the great things about working with and partnering with these two right here, because we each have strengths and we play off of those, whatever we might be challenged with. And it's just been great. But so the other thing is, welcome to our backyard, because that's what it's all about up here in the North Country. I mean, we live, play, and work here in this beautiful, beautiful environment that everybody else comes up to enjoy on the weekends mostly. So
right. And it is a beautiful area. And, more and more I've been getting into the Jefferson area and a little bit farther north. Matter of fact, we were up in Kilkenny. Me and Nick did Nick did a partial traverse. I did the whole thing up in Kilkenny, and it is a different world compared to some of the other ranges within the White Mountains. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about it. But I guess why don't you just, Heidi, if you could continue on and just give the background on, and you touched on this a little bit, but how ultimately did you guys come to know each other, and then how did you pull them into your little mission that you started in 2007?
Yeah, so it's great. Again, another great question. I think when we talked about it, we came together, the three of us, as our kids were growing up. I mentioned Olivia already, but Jen has 3 kids, and I have 2 boys. They're adults now, but
they're always going to be your boys.
They're always yes. But they went to school together. So they played sports together, good friends. Olivia and Nick were best friends, and actually there was some dating that went on too between Nick and Laura, who's Jen's daughter. So that's how we've known each other through the years. But really, it all started Cathy told the story about how she got started with her after her knee replacement, and we just slowly but surely got her to a point where she could really experience these 48, and now she's almost done. Jen and I had never hiked, but we always talk about it, and just so happened I was doing Cannon one day, and I said, "Kay, you want to go?" And that's when we started. That's when that hiking connection started. And so now that it's all about supporting each other and trying to get through whatever goals we have, and it's also outside of the hiking too. I mean, we really, we call it our adventure team. If we're not hiking, we're doing something else. We're going to Maine and doing to the botanical gardens with some of our other friends. It's just it's all about this social health, because it's so important as we age to make sure that we have those great relationships.
Yeah, and I'm starting to feel that too. Like my kids, I've got one that graduated, and I've got 2 that are in college right now, and it is kind of weird. Like all of a sudden, the summertime's great because they're all back, and you're busy, and you got to cook dinner every night, and it's all about their lives. But then like September rolls around, and you're like, oh my God, I got all this free time. And it's like, and I have a crew of friends that we call ourselves the dad bods, the Amesbury dad bods. So, that's our text group. But I have a group of friends too that I pulled into hiking a little bit, so I get it. But you do have a lot of free time. You have a lot of free time, but you have more free time when your kids get older and they're starting their lives. And there's a joy in watching them start their lives, but it also comes with a cost of you've got more free time and you've got to figure out like what's next. So I think having a network of friends that have similar interest and you can get out there with. Nick, listen up. You're just at the beginning of this, but you'll know in 20 years what we're talking about.
Just getting started.
Yeah, but that's good. So, all right. So before we get into some additional questions, I just want to go around the room and starting with Jen. So can you, and it doesn't have to be hiking related, but can you give a hidden gem or something cool that you recommend? I always ask this to the locals. Like it could be a restaurant, it could be ice cream place, it could be a secret swimming hole or anything like that. Like what's a hidden gem up in your area that you would recommend to people?
One hidden gem, if I have to choose one, I've got to choose. No, really, the trails off of Durand Road with Randolph Mountain Club are awesomely accessible trails for kids and really cool land and exploring places.
Okay. I don't know if I
was just about to ask where Durand Road was. I'm just going to look
So
now.
Durand Road, so Appalachia.
Yep.
You know where Appalachia. Yeah. So Durand Road is like just Durand Road runs parallel with Route 2, and it's just north of that, like by not far.
Oh, I see. So this is like Boy Mountain in that area there you're talking about?
It's really close to Appalachia. In fact, even some of these Randolph Mountain Club's trails actually connect to Appalachia. It's maybe a half a mile walk from Appalachia over to Durand Road at the most.
Yeah, I see it. I see it on the map.
If you ever remember seeing that, it's behind there in that area, and Randolph Hill Road. It all connects.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I will put that in the show notes as a hidden gem for sure.
I think the Randolph Community Forest, I think you guys have been up there.
Right.
I think I remember you at least.
Crescent Ridge, you've done up there, Crescent Ridge, right?
Yep.
So this is actually just down from there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That road that you can see from Lookout Rock or whatever that is. So
That's it. Right on.
Okay.
Oh,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Great.
Very cool.
All right, Cathy, what's your secret hidden gem that you want to share?
This is not a hiking trail.
Yes.
But we have, thanks to Copper Pig Brewery, a local brewery, they shared some of their Ice Jam Lager with us. Wonderful little place right on the river in downtown Lancaster. Very quaint, nice place to relax after a day out on the mountains or whatever.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll check that out. I'll put that in the show notes too. And we drove through Lancaster on the way up to South Pond, and I've stopped in a couple of times. Matter of fact, I had to dive into the Dunkin' Donuts to avoid a hailstorm one time, but I got to spend more time in Lancaster. So, all right. And then Heidi, what's a secret or a hidden gem that you want to share?
So I hate to share the secret, but this lake on Bagog, it's in Errol, New Hampshire, so it's way up there at 13 Mile Woods. Go off Route 16 and you get there. We go to the remote campsites. There's actually a beautiful campground right on the shores, and that's been rebuilt, and it's just unbelievable.
Is this a private campground or is this AMC?
No, this is a state campground.
State campground. Okay.
Yes, and it's right Upton, Maine, so it borders Upton. It's Maine, New Hampshire, and it's something that I've had an opportunity to go to since I met my husband. At that point, we were dating, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful place, and there's these remote campsites that you reserve, but the state campground right on the shore is unbelievable too.
All right. Well, that's a good one. So I'll you may need to send me an email with the link on that one, but I'll include it in the show notes. Awesome. So, all right. So now, as me and Nick are both on, we're from Massachusetts. We're not North Country people. I try to fit in. I spent a lot of time in Western Maine, but can you just give your perspective? Like, how do the locals see us coming up there, and what can we do to fit? Look, I already drive a Subaru, so I'm halfway there. But how do I fit in better up in the North Country?
I think you probably fit in pretty well, Mike, as long as you greet people, you say hi, you make eye contact with people, and you make connections, right? So really kind of that kind of thing, that real life making connections with people. I don't know. What else do you think? Yeah.
I think we've talked about those relationships and how the supporting. I think you guys are doing an awesome job supporting our search and rescue teams, whether it's conservation officers or the several teams that come out. And with the reports that you do, I mean, it really brings attention to what as hikers we need to be prepared as best we can. We can talk all sorts of ways about how to do the safety and everything, but I think we certainly get a little concerned sometimes, because when we go to the trail, when we go, especially by Appalachia, it's, and we know what Franconia Notch is like. So there's definitely a lot of traffic.
But I think it's also important, and I think you do a lot of this on your show, is that there's a respect, right? There's a respect for these mountains, for the weather, for whether you're up there hiking and you're in a difficult situation, or you are leave no trash behind, those kinds of things. I think having that respect for what's here is critical. And again, as Heidi said, I think you guys do a really nice job of talking about that as you're going through some of your shows with your guests and highlighting some of those, don't leave your toilet paper right by the side of the trail.
Right. Bury that. I tell my friend Dave to make sure he buries all that stuff. So, but it is interesting. So, it is interesting. Like Appalachia, even though it's busy, when you go back in the history, that was where most of them. It's really where a lot of the conservation and the trail system started. Was Charles Lowe and William Noel just basically started building all of those trail systems out of Appalachia, and every summer in the late 1800s, Jefferson was really like the center starting point, right? Lowe's Path, and Lowe was like right across from where it is now. So it really is. There's so much history there. I don't know, are any of you history nerds? I'm a history nerd.
So I will have to say that my husband's family is related to the Lowes.
Okay.
His mom grew up at that Lowe's garage. His grandfather was part of that whole piece. So yes, I've paid attention to that, and the Lowe legacy in Randolph.
Yeah.
Well, that's like a North Country name drop right there.
Right.
Related to the Lowe's.
That's an impressive flex. So, all right, just going around the room again. Well, this time we'll start with you, Heidi. Is your favorite areas to hike for the listeners? What is your perspective on your favorite section of White Mountains to hike?
Right. So, Jen mentioned those Randolph Mountain Club trails, but my favorite of the 48 summits, Kerrigan and Moosilauke. Those are, I just would do those any day.
Right. Even so with Kerrigan, even with the road closure, it's
well, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that but I've done it, several times now, but I haven't done it since it was a road closure. I think I do my bike. I bring my bike with me.
Oh, that's true. That's the beautiful part of already completing the list.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah. I could, but I was thinking, just out to the trailhead. So
right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Those are good ones. And then, Cathy, what do you think? What is your favorite?
I think for me, Crawford Path.
Right.
That's the one I did with Heidi and my daughter and daughter-in-law to celebrate my 60th birthday. That was like this big deal hike. That was my first real big deal hike after my knee surgery, all those other things, and it's just incredible up there, right? The views, the vegetation. I would go back there anytime, and whether and we did not summit Washington because of the weather, but we did Monroe, Eisenhower, Pierce, all the way along there.
Oh, wow.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous stretch, and it's cool that it's literally the oldest continually maintained footpath in North America too. It's over 200 years old. But yeah, I agree. That whole stretch when you get into the Southern Presidentials, especially when you're heading back towards 302, is just stunning. It's beautiful on a nice day. The Northern Prezzies are really beautiful too. I love that whole range, but it's awesome with all sort of the alpine fields and kind of all the rock and stonework that's done up there. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always say Crawford Path up to Pierce. That's the best one to take newer hikers that are ready for a 4,000 footer. If you get that on a good day, then that's it. That's the hook right there.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
And then Jen,
and I could see the views forever. I didn't have to wait till I got to a summit to see a view, so it was great.
That's awesome. And then Jen, what are your thoughts on your favorite area, the Whites?
Well, my favorite area is less about the peak and more about the scramble and getting there. So I really am a pretty big fan of like the side of Adams. So King Ravine, Chemin des Dons.
You said that so
That was
well.
great.
Yes.
Well, I could have chosen to say Chemin des Dames, but
Chemin des Dons. I like it.
We could say that too. I like kind of those scrambly hikes. I also love,
I have to put a plug in for Jen. She just finished her T25s.
Okay,
Congratulations.
I love that. So it's a great list. Did you guys go with her on a lot of those, or is that sort of a Jen solo type of deal?
So it's not a Jen solo type of deal. We really all support each other. So like they all along have been supporting me. And it got time for me to do a couple of hikes in, actually in the Great Gulf Wilderness. I was a little, yeah. And so, I reached out to Redline and, got a guide for Sphinx and Six Husbands. And, so then I felt pretty confident about heading back to Great Gulf Wilderness, without a guide, and I did that. And Heidi thinks she wants to attack these, so sort of paying it forward. We got a plan to head out on Friday to go into Sphinx and Six Husbands.
Nice.
So yeah, it's all like just supporting each other and whatever, and supporting others.
Right. Yeah. No, those hikes are, the Great Gulf is tricky for sure. But I think once you go in there a couple of times, the toughest part about the Great Gulf, in my opinion, is just that section past Spalding Pond where you have to go up to the Great Gulf headwall is kind of like it's like choose your own adventure. But the rest of it is, the trail systems, they're steep, but they kind of work themselves out. But yeah, that section after Spalding Pond is a little like, if you're not used to it, it's a learning process for sure.
Yeah, I said that to Cathy tonight. Like, the cairns they're there, but they're pretty small. Right. And so it does begin to feel a little bit about choose your own adventure and then adjust as you need to. What was striking to me about that was, you're coming out of the wilderness and you reach the ridge, Gulf side, it's like, bam, there is civilization, right? And it's big civilization. You're seeing the cog, you're seeing the summit building, and there's noise. So you go from wilderness to like all this activity.
Right. Yeah. It's like, you're 300 feet below like this bustling area, and all of a sudden you pop up and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Jen, I'll just stick with you for a sec. So from a safety perspective, as you guys have gone along in your hiking, what have you learned around safety, and, how do you educate yourself around making sure that you've got everything that you need? And then has your gear philosophy changed at all since you started?
Yeah, great question. So we really thoroughly plan hikes and prepare, like looking at the trails, looking at the AMC guide, maps. Also, I'll download my maps on Gaia just to have them. And then as far as my pack goes, of course, we have the 10 essentials and plenty of water and food. I actually have a bit changed my packing. I just recently actually have added a pad to my pack because I think about thunder, right, and lightning, and I think a pad would be great to have underneath my feet if I ever get caught. Like, we don't want to, but we might, right? And so I've added that to my bag. I don't think we would call us light and fast, but I think we're pretty thorough packers with the 10 essentials and plenty of food and water.
Right. And then as far as and I guess Cathy, you can answer this one. How do you guys go about picking the days? Like, is it like, are you basically tied down to like we hike on the weekends and then we just wait for good weather, or do you have flexibility and then do you pretty much wait for good weather conditions when you go out?
So, we're fortunate in that we do have some flexibility because we don't have to do a long drive, right? We can drive 10 minutes or 20 minutes and be at a trailhead, but we all have demanding careers. Heidi's an extension. I work for an engineering firm. Jen does some teaching assistance and works with out of state, a lot of times traveling. So we just did this the other day when we were together. We took our calendars out and we X'd off, all right, what days can we hike this month? I'm good August 8th, I'm good August 11th, maybe only 2 of us are available. So we plan those days, and then we look at the weather before we go. And the other day, you guys were going to do what trail?
We were going to do Great Golf.
They were going to do Great Golf. The weather didn't look good, so they went up Success instead. So, we have to be flexible, and we do choose our hikes based on the weather. Like Madison and Adams, my next venture, we've got a couple of days pegged for that.
Right.
And it'll depend on what the weather's like, which day will actually go up.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the nice thing about you get a little bit of experience. I think initially when I first started, I was so excited, but I was also we were all type A people, and I was so focused on all right, I want to get another check off the list, and I would press a little bit on, and then you go through a couple of bad weather days, and you're like, why am I doing this? I've got all this time, and it's not worth it to get the risk. Although I will say, I've started to get used to the umbrella. Nick and I have been using umbrellas. And that's my favorite.
Turning me on to that. Yeah,
I need to be sold on the umbrella.
Well, it's you can't do it above tree line, but below tree line, if you get caught in the rain with an umbrella, you'll be happy. Believe me, it's better than a raincoat. I think in warmer weather.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw somebody with an umbrella when we did Wildcat A the other day, and I started to try to chat him up. I don't think he was one of these people that I could have a long conversation.
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, the umbrella. Do you listen to Slasher?"
Sometimes you run into the introverts on the trail. So, all right. So I got a couple of rapid fire questions here. So, whoever wants to answer first can just jump in on this. So, I think you touched on this a little bit, but who was the main planner of the group?
Heidi.
Well, yes and no. What I've learned a lot from Jen. I mean, she these big hikes that she's been, these terrifying 25 around Washington and Adams. I mean, she does some unbelievable planning. And one of the things that I wanted to mention, because I know you guys always are suggesting different things. She's found this because of the bridge being out, the suspension bridge. She's found this this data set for how the water's rising and
right.
From you all.
Oh,
right.
That's what I missed that one.
That's right. Yeah, you can look at the gauges of the flows. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So we get a lot of we pick up a lot of hints from you all.
Awesome.
So thank you.
All right, who's always late? Who's always late? You're waiting for them to get to the trailhead or get out of their house.
It's probably me. It's probably Jen.
Okay, Jen.
Yeah, but Jen is ready to go. She comes with her boots and everything on.
Right.
Heidi and I got to put the boots on when we get to the site.
I'm the last one there, but I'm ready to hike.
Yeah, you're getting out of the car first.
Yeah.
All right, who brings the best snacks?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know.
Well, Heidi, Jen has. What do you have? A fig for each of us?
Well, I my emergency stash are dates, 3 dates, a date for each person. I figure there's a lot of calories in those and trail mix, but I don't know if that's the best food.
Right. If you got to throw your husbands overboard too, you got your dates ready to go.
Right.
So, all right. I think I know the answer to this one. The biggest talker, you guys had already mentioned this one.
That's Heidi.
That's Heidi.
Yeah.
So, do you say hi to everybody on trail when you go past? There has to be a point where you're going up Old Bridle or Falling Waters, or you're going up Tuckerman, where you can't say hi to everybody, Heidi.
Right. No, I try to do most, but I have this radar. I know who we can really talk to and who we can't. I mean, there's all sorts of stories we can talk about, conversations with folks.
But some of those conversations, it's just like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Right.
Some of those conversations on trail stay on trail.
Is there a certain thing, because you always have this thing about solo men hikers can be scary sometimes, and certainly my wife will tell me that I give off that vibe, and I get it. But is there anything that we can do to set off that radar, Heidi, where you can say I can talk to this person?
Probably I like to talk. I mean, even though I'm happily married, I am a big flirt. And so when I see men on the trail, that's usually when,
I got that vibe from you. I got that vibe.
At the celebration. I'm sure you did.
Right. So,
My poor husband.
Yes, yeah. And then we already talked about this one before, but so I love hiking with Nick, because Nick is perfect, because he'll run up 150 feet in front. He takes probably 200-300 photos per hike. which is amazing. And he's so talented, he can make me look good, which usually, it's
tough.
not easy. Not easy.
It's tough.
But and it sounds like that we already say that Cathy is the group photographer.
Yes, I am. The only thing is, when we did the bonds, we did it in a day, and Heidi gave me very specific instructions that I could only stop at the top, because if I stopped along the way and took a picture of every waterfall or every flower, we'd never make it.
Oh, you're a flower mushroom photographer too. That's a different level.
Boy. So, I might go for flowers sometimes, but I haven't gotten to the mushrooms yet. But I hear you on the waterfalls where it's like, you could easily dump like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, like at a nice cascade, adjusting settings and stuff. So I feel that.
And every trail is so unique, right? Some of them have that beautiful green moss. Yeah. Some of them have the aging forests. It's just,
Right. Yeah. And you start, the more you hike, the more you get to sort of know, like, all right, well, and I'll say this to my daughter sometimes. I'll be like, we just changed, like, we'll get to we'll switch over from softwoods to hardwoods, or we'll switch over to a mossy section. It's like, hey, the forest just changed. Pay attention to that. 'Cause as you hike more, the more you kind of used to that. And, you can get, sometimes some of the best photography I've taken is like that spot between Garfield and Lafayette, when you get down into the greenery, like that to me is like one of the nicest spots to take photos. And it's under tree line, but it's just so mossy and ancient looking. So you gotta have an eye for that stuff though.
Yeah.
Which is good. So, all right. So I think, Nick, my last question, then you can take over here, but fall foliage is coming up. Do any of you have any specific advice for the listeners about some hidden gems to check out for fall foliage? And it doesn't have to be a mountain; it can even be a drive too, if you want to use that.
I think the first tip for fall foliage is to try to come during the week if you can.
Right. Yep, that's a good one.
And then when you went up to Kilkenny not too long ago, it was probably less crowded than a lot of other places. So you come north of the Notches, go to Kilkenny, even go up to Dixville and do a little Table Rock hike.
Yep.
It's those are the kind of places that you're going to get the incredible views and maybe not quite as much traffic.
Right. Yeah. So midweek is key for sure.
And I got to think, being up by Jefferson, and as you're heading north, you guys are getting foliage a little bit earlier than, say, Franconia and the lakes, right? And kind of like, it kind of just goes south. I know it just reminds me of, I think it was maybe last week of September, first week of October, when I did McGalloway, I did it after driving for trail maintenance and did it the next day. And I think that was first week of October, and like up in Pittsburgh, it was like peaking almost already, which is cool. This is probably 2 or 3 years ago. I know it varies depending with temperatures and stuff, but it was kind of wild. Like the further north I was driving, like, oh, it's like really going off up here kind of. And there was really nobody. It was a Saturday, again, not a holiday weekend or anything. I was like, this is kind of amazing.
It come up before Columbus Day, because if you come up Columbus Day, you might miss peak for some of these areas. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Any other thoughts around fall foliage?
No, I mean, it is beautiful, but we talk about fall foliage, but I learned a long time ago from one of our wildlife biologists here in the office is that we have the spring foliage. What I've really enjoyed looking at more has been how those greens change. So that's another time that you can enjoy being around. And when we hike, we can really see a difference too and how it starts to go up.
I know, speaking of spring, there's a ton of areas along Route 2. I know just from, say, Jefferson to like Appalachia, where there's lupines like everywhere along the roads a lot of times. And you're probably not going to deal with like the crowds of if you're going to like Polly's Pancake Parlor or something like that. They're just there.
Yeah, Lisbon. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. So, Nick, any other questions for the Summit Sistahs?
Yeah, I did have one thought. So obviously you guys have hiked a lot together. Is there any particular time that might have been like the most challenging or memorable hike that you have all done together, or maybe a particularly, I don't know, difficult one? Or
can we talk about isolation?
We can talk.
So Jen wasn't on this one with us, but I had done isolation several years ago.
And this is what kind of friend she is. She was never going to do it again.
That's what everybody says.
I got to go.
Yeah.
Then you're out there again.
But so it was. We decided to go another route besides just doing Rocky Branch all the way. So we went up Glen Boulder.
Excellent.
And we didn't get the early start that we usually do when we hike, because we do try to get out there earlier than, especially when we hike with Jen, we got to get out there really early, which is good. And so we went up that trail and we got to the Crawford Path, right? No, not Crawford.
No,
what's the one? Well, the top.
Boot Spur. Do we get?
It's Davis Path. You connect with Davis Path.
Yeah, right below Boot Spur.
So I'm like looking at the time and having already been down in there. I mean, I hadn't done that route, but I knew it was going to be a long day. And I'm thinking, if we have to go back this way and go down the boulders that we just came up, it was going to be a challenge in the dark, even though we were prepared. And so Cathy's decision was, because it was her hike, and that's how we also practice. Whoever's hike it is, they help to make the decision. They make the decision, but we certainly provide input. And so she says, let's go. We'll go for an amount of time, and then we'll see where we are. Now, I was in the front, and I basically wear my emotions on my body. And so Cathy, she could tell that I was starting to ramp up.
Well, when she started saying we got to look and see if we can find firewood in case we need a campfire tonight, I'm thinking I'm just kind of go with the flow, happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
My mind hadn't gotten there yet, but Heidi was like, I was just like, ooh.
So we quickly, what I shared with her, I said, I think what we need to do is even though I don't want to, Cathy, we need to go back down Rocky Branch. We need to go down that way after we summit. So we did that after I almost ran into the moose that likes to hang out at the summit, and Cathy saved my life. And
she's trucking along because we got to get going. And I'm like, Heidi, stop. She's like, what? There was like a moose literally 15 feet from her on the trail.
He turned and did a side trail. And so as we're going down Rocky Branch, and I was seeing many of the spots that I'd seen when I had done it with my mentor Ginger and my son and his girlfriend at the time, I started to realize that our car was up
Glen Boulder,
7 miles from where we were going to end up. And so I started talking to Cathy about that, and we started thinking, what can we do? Well, we finally got service. So this is where our support team comes in. So we said, okay, who are we going to call? We're going to call Dave, Cathy's husband, or we're going to call mine. So we called Larry, and we got him. And he said, okay, Larry, this is the deal. This is where we are. Can you come get us at Rocky Branch? And he agreed to do that. And so we got there probably about 6 or 7. It was starting to get dark. And I mean,
and one of the poor decisions that we made was that we had parked our car at Glen Boulder. And coming down Rocky Branch, we were like, it's just a couple miles.
Right. You overestimate it's a long way to get up there.
I mean, I guess we can hitchhike, but we weren't like this. It was going to be dark by the time we got on that route. And so Larry came to get us. Now, one of the things that's amazing about my husband is that every time he comes to pick us up, or he celebrates a big milestone for us, he always comes prepared with the cooler and the snacks. So I'm very fortunate to be able to share that with my team.
Great,
So we got down, and Larry wasn't there. He was there pretty soon after we got down, and so it all worked out.
It worked out.
Yeah, but that's just one of the great adventures that we had, and the story that we love to tell.
Yeah, and I do think that route, like even though you're worried about the time and everything, but like when you get to Glen Boulder, and that's amazing, and then when you get through. I call it the grouse trap, because there's always grouse in that little tree section before you get up to Davis Path and Boot Spur. But you get to Boot Spur area and Davis Path, and then looking down as you ascend, that's an amazing view. Heading to isolation, so that's a fun trip.
You also become acutely aware pretty quickly of how the climb up is going to be. I think it's 1,100 feet on the way back up.
Yeah, I recommend doing the traverse. I think the route that you guys did, spotting a car at Rocky Branch, is the way to go. That's probably the best way to do that.
Yeah. If we ever do it again, we'll make sure we put another car or something. We're very fortunate. Support team is always there.
Yeah, excellent.
Awesome.
So, all right, ladies, we have, so you guys did amazing. I give you a 10 out of 10 for being guest here.
11 out of 10.
11 out of 10.
11 out of 10.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to get out as a message to the listeners? We'll definitely have you guys back on again, but is there anything that we missed that you wanted to cover before we let you go?
I think no matter where you are in your life, just get out there and start moving.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can accomplish, what you can see, the friends you can make. It's just go move.
Yeah.
Right. And it's never too late to start. You get people that started and then took a break and then get back into it. And then you get people that start later in life. And again, sometimes we have these fastest known time or whatever people, but you don't have to go, you don't have to be out there setting world records or anything like that. Find some friends, get out there and have some fun.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So as always, welcome to our backyard, and you guys are always welcome to join us, or we would love to have you when you're up here in this area to go have a beer or whatever it is that we have to do, because we love to listen to Slasher.
Awesome. Yeah, stay in touch for sure. Yeah. And if you guys ever need anybody to go hiking, I'm always down for Terrifying 25. Just let me know. And my kids are exiting. They're going back to school in a month or so. And then my wife, she can only take so much of me. And she says, go hike.
Yeah. Maybe don't let Mike near your dairy farm.
At least near the cows with a knife, right?
We'll field trip to Cathy.
Right.
Yes.
Followed by hiking.
Right, exactly. So, all right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, it was great seeing you all again. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Hike on, team.
So, Nick, that was great. I think that she's going to hire me to be a farmhand and take care of all the cows' hoofs.
Yeah, I didn't know. That is one YouTube rabbit hole that I have never heard of before. But now I know.
It's so satisfying when they heal the cows' hoofs. So anyway, but all right. So that was fun, and we'll stay in touch with them, and definitely have them on and back again in the future. So they were great.
Yeah, absolutely. They were. They did a great job.
Yeah, they did. All right, Nick. So I think that we are a little bit under time crunch here. So I'm going to do 2 local search and rescue news stories here. Or maybe you can do you want to do the hiker fatality first, and then we can do the Pemi Wilderness one afterwards, and then we'll save the rest for the next episode?
Sure. That sounds good, Mike. So we had on July 22nd, around 4:30 p.m., New Hampshire Fish and Game Conservation officers were notified of a solo hiker, I can't talk tonight apparently, who had experienced a medical emergency on the Rattle River Trail in Shelburne. So this is sort of the one that I think goes up the backside of Shelburne Mariah.
Correct. Yeah. Branches out to either Mariah or Shelburne Mariah.
Yeah, I lost a trekking pole there. If anybody's ever there and finds it, probably gone forever now. Anyways, not making light of this, but a bystander who witnessed the hiker become unresponsive made an immediate call to 911 and subsequently began providing CPR. So not a great situation. Based on the severity of the medical emergency that was believed to have occurred, and the location being 3 miles from the nearest road, a call to the Army National Guard was made requesting their assistance, and a helicopter crew was quickly formed and began responding from the hangar in Concord. At the same time, a conservation officer began hiking to the location of the incident on Rattle River Trail. At 6:30 p.m., the Black Hawk arrived, and its crew were able to extract the injured hiker from the remote mountainside location and transport him to Gorham EMS ambulance at the Gorham Airport. And then Gorham EMS and Gorham Fire Department, along with Gorham Police, assisted with the patient transfer. And unfortunately, despite their best efforts, the hiker did pass away and succumb to the medical event that he sustained while hiking and was pronounced dead, unfortunately. So, sad story. Yeah, kind of, again, I have to imagine maybe some sort of event happening.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like it's. I kind of crunch these numbers every year when we have the fatalities, and unfortunately, it doesn't happen a lot. Given the volume of hikers, but it is not completely uncommon for these medical incidents to happen, and they hit everybody. Doesn't matter gender, age, or whatnot, but it does seem to cluster a little bit more, and the 50-something, 60-something men for sure. We have no idea what the actual medical issue was here, but I do recommend that, I got to live this myself, but get your medical checkouts, make sure that you're getting your heart health checked out. At least and your
EKG, ECG type stuff,
right.
Like things like that.
Right, exactly.
In our condolences to the family and everybody else involved. I did want to mention one thing, Mike, that driving home, there was awful traffic on Sunday morning, which wasn't super surprising, but I actually drove by the Concord Air National Guard and Army National Guard sort of base in Concord, and you could actually see where they had the Black Hawks out on the tarmac and stuff. Never been by there before. It's like just outside sort of the Concord Hooksett area. So that was actually kind of neat. It kind of caught my eye, and just realizing how big those Black Hawks actually are. Like they're enormous.
Oh, yeah.
Huge machines.
Yeah, it's impressive that they get up there and do that. So, but yeah, again, condolences to the family, and it's always this sort of trite thing to say, but hopefully he was, he's doing what he loved to do, and I'm sure he leaves good memories with his family.
Yep.
All right, Nick, this next one here, this is an interesting one. So we actually got contacted by the people involved in this rescue. So we don't generally we don't spend as a matter of fact, we have an episode coming up where we're going to be talking with a couple of people that had actually been involved in search and rescue situations as victims. So we haven't really done that before, but I think we have an episode coming up in a few weeks about we're going to talk to a couple of people in that. But this one here, we got contacted by one of the people that was involved in this rescue in this hiking party, that she just look, I think the press releases that come out from Fish and Game sometimes, like, they don't give a level of detail or perspective sometimes that people that are involved in the rescue have. So she just wanted to call out a little bit more detail on this. So I'll start with the press release, and then I'll add a little bit of color from listener Carrie, who was was basically hiking with the victim in this situation, and she clarified a couple of things on the press release here. So this one happened at, so this was the day before I was out there. So Carrie, next time, tell your friend not to get in until the next day. I might have been out there. I could have helped you guys. But on July 25th, Fish and Game was notified of a hiker in need of assistance on the Lincoln Brook Trail within the Pemi Wilderness. The hiker had suffered a lower extremity injury, which had made her unable to walk on her own. She was located near 13 Falls Tent Site, which is approximately 8 miles from Lincoln Woods Visitor Center. 48-year-old hiker. The press release indicates that she was from South Carolina, but actually I think that the hiker was actually from Pennsylvania, but I don't know where the disconnect is there. But the hiker, there was a group of, it was Girl Scout group, and the victim in this situation was one of the troop leaders, and they had spent the previous evening at 13 Falls Tent Site and were planning to head back out to the Lincoln Brook Trail. So they had headed out during the second brook crossing. The hiker in this case slipped on some wet rock and fell, causing her to injure her lower extremity. All those crossings out there, it's kind of weird, like the way the rivers run is like even in the lowest point, you still need to think through where you're going to hop on the rocks. And I even noticed a couple of times, every once in a while, there's a rock that looks like it's going to be solid and it moves. There's rocks that are, the only choice you have is to step on a wet rock. So it's dicey in all of those, all those crossings out there. It's just even in low conditions, it's just dicey on hopping the rocks there. So I'm assuming she probably either stepped on a rock that moved or just slipped, and it's kind of like a stuff happens type of situation. So she injured her lower extremity, and in the news article here, it basically says that a short time later, a hiking group of Good Samaritans came upon the victim and was able to get a 911 text through on their phone. Now, the person who reached out to us clarified that this was what actually happened here. And again, Fish and Game doesn't always get all the details. They're worried about getting the person to safety. So that's like, I get it. Yeah. But essentially what happened here is that the victim was an assistant scoutmaster, a lot of years of experience with hiking and backcountry camping. So she was with a group of Girl Scouts, and when she got injured, this is all experienced people that have like wilderness first aid training, and they basically initiated, some of the leaders of the troop initiated some of the first aid, and some of the scouts themselves actually in the group were involved in the initial basically triage of what happened in this situation. So at the same time, there was other group of folks that happened to be in the area, and these were former Boy Scouts and Scoutmasters. So basically, like, it's good fortune. So you got a group of experienced wilderness first aid people that were involved in the Girl Scout group. Then you've got Scoutmasters, and one of which I believe, if I'm reading this correctly, was a medical doctor, and another one was an engineer. So essentially what they all did is the Girl Scouts and this other group of folks were able to basically craft a litter out of a hammock, rain
Yeah, that's
fly.
impressive.
It was a hammock rain fly, and then they got tree branches with paracord tying it together, and then they rigged, and this is basically all the equipment that Carrie had with her. They rigged a hammock as a harness to carry one end of the litter. So this is another endorsement for like having a hammock, having the tarp with you. Also carry smart
paracord.
Exactly. And also I think that like it's really smart to be, if you're going to go to 13 Falls or Liberty Springs or Guillot or any of these places, having a hammock with you is like the smartest thing you can possibly do, just for the fact of you're not going to get pushed to any overflow sites or have any problems setting up your tents. You can basically hang anywhere you want, and you had the added bonus that you can rig up this amazing litter. So Carrie actually sent me a picture of the rigging that they have. So they found these long branches, they basically threaded through the tarp, and then it looks like they're using a sleeping bag to either put her in or rest her into it, and then they're basically taking her across this river crossing. So yeah, it's very impressive. And the Girl Scouts are in there helping out with everything. So it was a team effort here. Basically, I think that's what Carrie wanted to make sure that she clarified, was like, this was a situation where by the time they got everything rigged together, I think she went down. I don't know exactly what time she went down here, but essentially they got her back to 13 Falls, and they got her back into a shelter area of 13 Falls to triage her. I don't know what the extent of the lower extremity injury was, but I think it was pretty serious. And then they were able to get the message out, and then search and rescue arrived around 2 p.m. and started the evacuation at 2:30. Some of the troop members had already started to hike out, and they basically took all of the victims' gear all the way out. And they're carrying like 80 pounds, 50 to 80 pounds, all these Girl Scouts are carrying out. So kudos to the victims' hiking friends, and then kudos to the team that was helping out as Scoutmasters and whatnot. And then obviously like the Pemi search and rescue team, they brought about 25 responders. Yep. And they said that the team was so kind, and that it was a really tough day, and that Carrie herself had indicated that she was proud of the team, and the Girl Scouts were incredibly helpful throughout the whole experience. So kudos to them. And it's a reminder that like the press releases only say so much about it. Appreciate them giving us kind of the inside scoop on this one, but don't feel obligated to have to send that out to us if you're involved in a rescue. But it's great to know that they were there. And this is the picture that she sent us is amazing with the litter neck. I don't know if I'll send it to you if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I didn't actually check that out yet, but yeah, kudos to them for sure for being resourceful. Obviously, we know the search and rescue teams, Fish and Game is always there to help when you need them. But if you can initiate some of that stuff yourself, and certainly crafting basically a carry litter out in the middle of 13 Falls is pretty damn impressive. Yeah. To say the least. And like you said, some of it's fortune, but going out there and being able to do that. I mean, I don't carry paracord on me normally, so that's something that maybe I'll have to think about now, because that's got a lot of uses. But very, very resourceful folks out there.
Yeah.
And good job on it.
Yeah, and hopefully she's feeling better soon. And it's always
hopefully it heals up quick.
Yeah, exactly. It sucks to get injured, but on the bright side, like I'm sure that like these Girl Scouts that are involved in this, like first of all, they're going to come out and say like, I can face adversity, and number two, they'll have a memory, and maybe it'll inspire some of them to if they haven't already. I'm sure some of them have their wilderness first aid classes already, but like maybe the ones that didn't, they'll want to learn more about it. So, but it's a proud day for all of them to be able to get her back to safety, and then let the SAR team do their thing.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I'm inspired, Nick. That was getting me fired up. I want to go out with my hammock now and save somebody.
Me too. That was a good story to end on. I mean, with all that we read with these stories, sometimes I've definitely, the thoughts cross my mind for doing a wilderness first aid class or something like that. It's probably good to have at least one person in a group that knows how to do that stuff. I don't know if I'll have the free time to do that for a bit, but
yeah,
probably something I might think about checking out one day.
Yeah, you're going to be busy, man. I gotta get the trail adoption.
I think you should do that.
Yeah, I gotta get the trail adoption work off the ground here, and then maybe I'll do the wilderness first aid next year.
That sounds good.
All right.
Yeah, let's slate you for that.
All right, Nick. Well, we went over 2 hours again. Unfortunately, we said we weren't going to. We never shut up around here, but we're gonna go, and we'll catch you next week.
All right. See you next week, everybody. Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered in today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information at SLASRPodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until then, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some mega peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words to describe this race. Do we all know what they are?
Lieutenant James Nealon, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared, and I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.